A crash landing. In a distant corner of the galaxy, far from the crowded shipping lanes and bustling spaceports, the SS Daedalus drifted silently through the endless void. Its hull was pitted and scarred from a lifetime of service, a patchwork of repairs and retrofits that barely held together. In the cramped confines of the cockpit, Captain Zara Rourke scowled at the readouts flickering across her console. "I'm telling you, Cal, these readings don't make any sense. It's like the NAV system has gone haywire." Her first mate, a lanky Arcturian named Calran, leaned over her shoulder, his brow furrowed in concentration. "Let me take a look." His long fingers danced across the controls, trying to isolate the problem. Suddenly, the ship lurched violently, throwing them both from their seats. Alarms blared as red lights flashed across the cockpit. Zara hauled herself back into her chair, strapping in as she fought to regain control. What the hell was that? Calran's eyes widened as he stared at the sensor display. "Captain, we've been pulled out of hyperspace. But there's nothing here, no gravity wells, no." "Wait." He pointed at a blip on the screen, a reading that defied explanation. "There's something out there. Something massive." Zara followed his gaze, her breath catching in her throat as she saw it. A ship, if it could even be called that, hung in the darkness before them. It was vast, easily dwarfing the Daedalus, its sleek, organic lines unlike anything she had ever seen. It seemed to shimmer and shift, as if the very fabric of space bent around it. "By the stars," she whispered, "what is that thing?" Before Calran could respond, a searing light engulfed the cockpit. Zara threw her arm up to shield her eyes, but it was too late. The world went white, then faded into nothingness. Zara awoke to the taste of blood in her mouth and the acrid scent of smoke in her nostrils. She blinked, trying to clear her vision, but everything remained dark. Panic gripped her for a moment, until she realized her eyes were fine, the lights in the cockpit had failed. She unbuckled her harness, hissing in pain as she discovered new bruises. "Cal. Cal, are you all right?" A groan from the darkness was her only response. She fumbled in the emergency kit beneath her seat, finding a flashlight. The beam cut through the gloom, revealing the unconscious form of her first mate slumped over his console. She checked his pulse, sighing with relief when she found it strong and steady. He'd live, but they needed to get him to the medbay. The ship shuddered again, and Zara swore under her breath. Whatever had pulled them in was still out there. She needed to find out what had happened, where they were. Stumbling to the rear of the cockpit, she pulled open the door to find chaos. The main corridor was lit only by the eerie red glow of emergency lights, the air thick with the stench of burnt plastic. Crew members staggered through the haze, some supporting injured comrades, others fighting small electrical fires that had broken out across the ship. Zara grabbed the nearest crew member, a young engineer named Lena. "What's our status?" Lena shook her head, soot smeared across her face. "It's bad, Captain. Main power is down, we're on emergency reserves. Half the ship is without life support, and we've got hull breaches on decks 4 and 5. Zara's jaw clenched. The Daedalus was tough, but she wasn't invincible. They needed to find somewhere to set down, to make repairs. But where? As if in answer, the ship shuddered again, more violently this time. Zara braced herself against the wall as the deck pitched beneath her feet. What now? The intercom crackled to life, the voice of her second mate, Tariq, filling the corridor. "Captain, you need to get up here. We're being hailed." Zara's eyes widened. "Hailed? Out here, in the middle of nowhere?" She glanced at Lena. "Get Cal to the medbay, then report to your station. I have a feeling we're going to need all hands on deck." She raced back to the cockpit, dropping into her seat just as Tariq patched the hail through. The view screen flickered, static filling the screen before it resolved into an image that made Zara's blood run cold. It was a face, but unlike any she had ever seen. Angular and androgynous, with skin that shimmered like polished obsidian and eyes that glowed a luminous silver. The being regarded her with a cool, appraising gaze, as if she were an insect under a microscope. "Unknown vessel," it said, its voice a melodic thrum that seemed to vibrate in Zara's bones, "you have breached the sovereign territory of the Vin Imperium. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resistance will be met with lethal force." Zara swallowed hard, her mind racing. The Vin? Here. She had heard whispers of their empire, a vast, ancient civilization that predated humanity's venture into the stars. But no one had seen them for centuries, not since the last great war that had nearly torn the galaxy apart. She licked her dry lips, trying to find her voice. "This is Captain Zara Rourke of the SS Daedalus. We mean no harm or intrusion. Our ship was damaged and pulled out of hyperspace. We're just looking for a place to make repairs." The alien's face remained impassive, unmoved by her plea. "Your reasons are irrelevant. You will comply or be destroyed. You have one of your hours to make preparations. Do not attempt to flee." The screen went dark, leaving Zara staring at her own reflection, pale and shaken. She looked to Tarek, who seemed just as stunned. "What do we do, Captain?" he asked, his voice barely more than a whisper. Zara closed her eyes, the weight of command heavy on her shoulders. The Daedalus was in no shape to fight, and even if she were, the Vin ship outclassed them in every way. Running was suicide. But surrender? To be boarded by an unknown, potentially hostile force? She opened her eyes, a steely resolve settling over her. "We comply," she said, the words tasting bitter on her tongue. "But we don't go down without a fight. Arm the crew, seal off critical areas. If they want the Daedalus, they're going to have to work for it." Tarek nodded grimly, relaying her orders through the ship. Zara sat back in her chair, her hand resting on the worn grip of her sidearm. She didn't know what the next hour would bring, but one thing was certain. The Vin, whoever or whatever they were, had just picked a fight with the wrong crew. And Zara Rourke never backed down from a fight. The boarding party. The hour passed in a tense blur of activity as the crew of the Daedalus prepared for the worst. Engineers worked feverishly to restore power and seal breaches, while the rest of the crew armed themselves with whatever weapons they could find. Zara stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen where the Vin ship loomed like a predator waiting to strike. She had faced raiders, pirates, and hostile corporate fleets in her time, but this was different. This was an unknown, an enemy she couldn't predict or understand. The comm system chimed, and she steeled herself as she answered. The alien's face filled the screen once more, as inscrutable as ever. "Your time is up," it said, its voice cold and clinical. "Prepare to be boarded." Zara's jaw clenched. "We're ready. But let me make one thing clear. My crew will defend this ship with their lives. Any aggression will be met with equal force." The alien tilted its head, as if considering her words. Then, to her surprise, its lips curved into what might have been a smile. "Aggression? Captain, you misunderstand. We have no interest in violence, unless you force our hand." The screen went dark, and a moment later, the ship shuddered as the Vin craft locked on. Zara's hand tightened on her sidearm as she heard the unmistakable clang of the airlock engaging. "They're coming through the main hatch," Tarek reported, his face pale but determined. "Security teams are in position." Zara nodded, then keyed the ship-wide comm, "All hands, this is the captain. We have been boarded by unknown forces. Remember your training, look out for each other, and don't let them take this ship without a fight. Rourke out." She cut the comm and drew her weapon, the weight familiar and reassuring in her hand. "Tarek, the bridge is yours. I'm going to greet our guests personally." Tarek looked like he wanted to protest, but he knew better. He simply nodded, taking the captain's chair as Zara strode off the bridge. The corridors were eerily quiet as she made her way to the main airlock, the only sound the thrum of her own heartbeat in her ears. She could feel the tension in the air, the fear and anticipation of her crew as they waited for the unknown. She reached the airlock just as the light turned green, indicating a successful seal. She raised her weapon, aiming at the door as it hissed open. A figure stepped through, tall and slender, clad in a shimmering black suit that seemed to absorb the light. It was flanked by two others, similarly dressed, their faces hidden behind sleek, featureless helmets. Zara's finger tightened on the trigger, but she held her fire. "That's far enough," she barked, her voice ringing out in the confined space. "Identify yourself." The lead figure raised its hands, slowly and deliberately, showing empty palms. Then, with a fluid movement, it reached up and removed its helmet. Zara's eyes widened. It was the alien from the view screen, its silver eyes seeming to pierce right through her. Up close, she could see the fine scales that covered its skin, the delicate ridges that swept back from its brow. "Captain Rourke," it said, its voice as smooth as silk. "I am Commander Zyn of the Vin Imperium. I apologize for the circumstances of our meeting, but I assure you, we mean you no harm." Zara's brow furrowed. "No harm? You pull us out of hyperspace, cripple my ship, threaten us with destruction, and you call that no harm?" Zyn's expression remained calm, unperturbed by her anger. "A misunderstanding, Captain. Your ship's sudden appearance in our space was unexpected. We had to take precautions." "Precautions?" Zara scoffed. "Is that what you call it?" Zyn's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Zara thought she saw a flicker of impatience in that silver gaze. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a cool, diplomatic smile. "Captain, we have much to discuss. But perhaps this conversation would be better suited to a more comfortable environment. Will you join me on my ship?" Zara's instincts screamed at her to refuse, to demand that the Vin leave her ship at once. But she knew she was in no position to make demands. The Deadless was at their mercy, and if she wanted to get her crew out of this alive, she needed to play along. "For now." "Fine," she said, lowering her weapon but not holstering it. "But my crew stays here. And if anything happens to them while I'm gone." She let the threat hang in the air, but Zyn merely inclined its head. "Of course, Captain. They will be quite safe, you have my word." Somehow, that word didn't reassure her much. But she had little choice. With a final glance back at her crew, who watched with a mix of fear and determination, she followed Zyn into the airlock. The interior of the Vin ship was unlike anything Zara had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of some kind of organic material, pulsing with a soft, inner light. The air was cool and dry, tinged with a scent she couldn't quite place, sharp and metallic, with an underlying sweetness. Zyn led her through a maze of corridors, each one identical to the last, until they reached what appeared to be a command center. A large, circular table dominated the room, its surface a shimmering pool of liquid that rippled and danced with patterns of light. "Please, Captain, have a seat," Zyn said, gesturing to one of the chairs that surrounded the table. "We have much to discuss." Zara remained standing, her arms crossed over her chest. "I'll stand, thanks. Now, start talking. What do you want with my ship?" Zyn sighed, as if dealing with a particularly difficult child. "Want?" "Captain, you misunderstand our intentions. We don't want your ship. We want you." Zara blinked, taken aback. "Me? What for?" Zyn's smile was almost pitying. "Captain Rourke, you have no idea what you've stumbled into, do you? The Vin Imperium is not just a civilization. It is a legacy, a destiny that spans the stars. And you, my dear Captain, have a part to play in that destiny." Zara's mouth went dry, a chill running down her spine. "What are you talking about?" Zyn leaned forward, its eyes gleaming with a fervor that was almost religious. "You are special, Captain. You and your crew. You have been chosen, selected by the universe itself for a great purpose. A purpose that will change the face of the galaxy forever." Zara shook her head, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. "You're insane. I'm not special, and neither is my crew. We're just people, trying to make a living in this crazy universe. We don't want any part of your destiny or your legacy." Ziwayan's smile never wavered. "Ah, but Captain, you don't have a choice. None of us do. The wheels of fate are already in motion, and you are but a cog in the great machine. You will come to understand, in time. You will see the truth, as we all have." Zara's hand tightened on her sidearm, a cold fury rising in her chest. "I've heard enough. I'm going back to my ship, and you're going to let us go. We'll find our own way, our own destiny." She turned to leave, but found her way blocked by Ziwayan's companions, their faces still hidden behind those inscrutable helmets. Ziwayan sked softly, shaking its head. "I'm afraid I can't let you do that, Captain. You are too important, too valuable to let slip away. You will remain with us, and in time, you will come to see the wisdom of our ways." Zara's jaw clenched, her finger tightening on the trigger. "Over my dead body," she growled. Ziwayan's smile finally faded, replaced by a look of cold determination. "If that is your choice, Captain, then so be it. But know this, your destiny is sealed, whether you embrace it or fight it. The Vin always get what we want. And we want you." Before Zara could react, a searing pain lanced through her head, driving her to her knees. She heard the clatter of her weapon hitting the floor, felt the cold grip of hands on her arms. Then the world faded away, and she knew no more. Revelations. Zara awoke to a throbbing pain in her head and a sour taste in her mouth. She blinked, trying to clear her blurred vision, and found herself in a small, dimly lit room. She was lying on a hard, narrow cot, her wrists and ankles bound by some kind of energy field. She tugged at her restraints, but they held fast. She cursed under her breath, trying to remember what had happened. The boarding, the Vin commander, the talk of destiny and fate, it all came rushing back, making her head spin. The door to her cell hissed open, and Ziwayan entered, flanked by 2 guards. The commander looked down at her, its silver eyes glinting in the low light. "Ah, Captain, you're awake. Good. We have much to discuss." Zara glared at Ziwayan, her jaw tight with anger. "I have nothing to say to you. Let me go, now." Ziwayan sighed, as if dealing with a petulant child. "Captain, please. We've been over this. You're not going anywhere. Not until you understand the truth." "What truth?" Zara spat. "That you're a bunch of delusional zealots who think the universe owes you something. That you have the right to kidnap and imprison people in the name of some grand destiny." Ziwayan's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Zara thought she saw a flicker of anger in that silver gaze. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced by a cool, almost pitying smile. "Oh, Captain. If only you knew the scope of what we're dealing with here. The Vin are not zealots, nor are we delusional. We are the guardians of a secret so vast, so profound, that it would shatter your understanding of reality itself." Despite herself, Zara felt a flicker of curiosity. "What secret?" Ziwayan leaned closer, its voice dropping to a whisper. "The universe, Captain Rourke, is not what it seems. The stars, the planets, the very fabric of space and time, it's all a construct, a simulation created by beings so advanced, so incomprehensible, that we can only call them gods." Zara's eyes widened, a chill running down her spine. "You're insane." Ziwayan chuckled, a sound that sent shivers down Zara's spine. "Am I?" "Think about it, Captain. The Vin Imperium has existed for millennia, unchanging, unaging. We have technology that defies the laws of physics, knowledge that surpasses the understanding of lesser species. How do you think we achieved such heights? Zara shook her head, unwilling to believe. I don't know. Advanced science, genetic engineering, who knows? But gods? Simulations? That's just, it's impossible. Ziwian's smile widened. Is it? Tell me, Captain, have you ever experienced a moment of déjà vu? A feeling that you've lived a particular moment before, down to the smallest detail? Zara frowned, unsettled. Yes, I suppose. But that's just a trick of the mind, a glitch in memory. No, Captain. It's a glitch in the simulation. A momentary overlap of realities, a glimpse behind the curtain. And it's just one of many signs, many clues that point to the truth. Zara's mind reeled, trying to process what she was hearing. It couldn't be true, it was too fantastic, too outlandish. But a small, treacherous part of her wondered, what if? Ziwian seemed to sense her doubts, its smile turning triumphant. You're starting to see, aren't you? The Vin are not your enemies, Captain. We are your shepherds, your guides to a higher truth. And you, whether you realize it or not, are a key part of that truth. Me? Zara's voice was hoarse, barely above a whisper. What do I have to do with any of this? Ziwian's eyes glowed with a fervor that was almost manic. Everything, Captain. You are an anomaly, a wild card in the grand design. Your very existence threatens the stability of the simulation, the balance of power that the gods have so carefully maintained. Zara's head spun, a wave of nausea washing over her. I don't understand. Ziwian's voice was almost gentle, almost pitying. You will, Captain. In time, you will see the role you have to play, the destiny that awaits you. But first, you must be tested, tempered in the fires of adversity. Only then will you be ready to take your place among the chosen. Zara's eyes narrowed, a spark of defiance flaring in her chest. And if I refuse? If I don't want any part of your insane delusions? Ziwian's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold determination. Then you will be broken, Captain. Your mind will be shattered, your will crushed, until there is nothing left but an empty shell, a puppet dancing on our strings. The choice is yours, but know this, one way or another, you will serve the Vin. You will serve the gods. With that, Ziwian turned and left, the door hissing shut behind it. Zara was left alone in the darkness, her mind reeling, her heart pounding with a fear she had never known. She closed her eyes, trying to center herself, to find some shred of sanity in the madness that had engulfed her. But all she could see was Ziwian's face, those silver eyes boring into her soul, promising a future she couldn't begin to comprehend. She didn't know what to believe, what to think. All she knew was that she was trapped, helpless, at the mercy of forces beyond her understanding. And for the first time in her life, Captain Zara Rourke felt truly, utterly alone. The test. Time lost all meaning in the confines of Zara's cell. Hours, days, weeks, she couldn't tell. The only constants were the dim light, the hard cot, and the periodic visits from Ziwian, each one bringing new revelations, new horrors. She learned of the Vin's history, their eons-long quest to unravel the secrets of the universe. She learned of the gods, the beings who had created the simulation, who watched from beyond the veil, pulling the strings of reality. And she learned of her own role, the part she was meant to play in the grand design. You are a paradox, Captain, Ziwian told her, its voice soft and insidious. A being of free will in a universe that is anything but. Your choices, your actions, they ripple out, affecting the very fabric of the simulation. That is why you must be controlled, guided. That is why you must serve the Vin. Zara shook her head, her voice hoarse from disuse. I serve no one but myself and my crew. I don't care about your gods, your simulation. I just want to be free. Ziwayan's smile was almost sad. Freedom is an illusion, Captain. A construct of the mind. In the end, we are all slaves to something, to our desires, our fears, our fates. The only true freedom is in submission, in embracing the role we were meant to play. Despite herself, Zara felt her resolve wavering. The Vin's words, their certainty, it was seductive in a way, promising a purpose, a meaning to the chaos of the universe. But a part of her, the part that had always rebelled against authority, against fate, refused to yield. "I won't be your pawn," she said, her voice trembling but defiant. "I won't be a tool in your cosmic game." Ziwayan's eyes flashed, a hint of impatience breaking through its calm facade. "You don't have a choice, Captain. The test has already begun." Before Zara could ask what Ziwayan meant, the cell around her dissolved, the walls melting away into a swirling void of color and light. She found herself standing on a vast, featureless plain, the horizon stretching out into infinity. "What is this?" she demanded, whirling to face Ziwayan. "Where am I?" The Vin commander stood beside her, its form shimmering and indistinct. "This is the proving ground, Captain. The place where your fate will be decided." As Ziwayan spoke, figures began to materialize out of the void, taking shape and substance. Zara's eyes widened as she recognized them, her crew, her friends, each one looking as confused and disoriented as she felt. "What have you done to them?" she demanded, rounding on Ziwayan. "If you've hurt them, I'll dash." "They are unharmed," Ziwayan said, its voice calm and unruffled. "For now. Their fate, like yours, hangs in the balance." Before Zara could respond, the scene shifted again. The plane vanished, replaced by a series of vivid, hyperrealistic scenarios, a bustling spaceport, a war-torn battlefield, the bridge of an unfamiliar ship. In each one, her crew faced challenges, threats, choices that would determine their survival, and their loyalty. Zara watched, helpless, as Tariq battled a horde of savage aliens, his face a mask of determination and fear. She saw Lena, the young engineer, grappling with a malfunctioning reactor, seconds away from a meltdown. And she saw Kai, her faithful first mate, facing down a mutinous crew, his hand hovering over the airlock controls. "You see, Captain." Ziwayan's voice was a whisper in her ear. "They are being tested, just as you are. Their choices, their actions, will determine their worth, and yours." Zara's heart raced, her mind reeling with the implications. "What do you mean?" Ziwayan's form solidified, its silver eyes boring into hers. "You are their leader, Captain. Their guide. If they fail, if they falter, it is on you. Their fate is your responsibility, and your burden." Zara's breath caught in her throat. She looked out at her crew, her friends, each one fighting for their lives, for their very souls. And she knew, with a certainty that chilled her to the bone, that Ziwayan was right. "What do I have to do?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ziwayan's smile was triumphant, almost hungry. "Lead them, Captain. Guide them. Show them the way. Prove yourself worthy of the Vin, of the gods, and they will follow." Zara closed her eyes, a single tear tracing down her cheek. She thought of her crew, her ship, the life she had built among the stars. And she thought of the Vin, of the destiny they offered, the purpose they promised. In the end, there was no choice at all. She opened her eyes, her gaze hard and determined. "I'll do it," she said, her voice steady and clear. "I'll lead them. I'll serve." Ziwayan's smile widened, its eyes glowing with a triumphant light. "Welcome to the Vin, Captain Rourke. Welcome to your destiny." And with that, the world dissolved once more, the testing ground fading into a swirl of light and shadow. Zara felt herself falling, hurtling through an endless void, her mind and soul consumed by the all-encompassing will of the Vin. She had made her choice, for better or worse. And now, there was no turning back. The Awakening. Zara awoke with a gasp, her body jackknifing upright on the hard, narrow cot. She was back in her cell, the dim light casting eerie shadows on the organic walls. Her head pounded, her mind reeling with the memories of the test, the choices she had made. Had it been real? Or just another Vin mind game, another manipulation designed to break her will? She couldn't be sure, and the uncertainty gnawed at her, eating away at her sanity. The door to her cell hissed open, and Zyn entered, its silver eyes gleaming in the low light. It looked at her, its expression unreadable. "How do you feel, Captain?" it asked, its voice soft and almost gentle. Zara laughed, a harsh, brittle sound that echoed off the walls. "How do I feel? I feel like I've been mind-fucked 6 ways from Sunday. I feel like I've betrayed everything I ever believed in. I feel like I'm losing my goddamn mind." Zyn's smile was almost sympathetic. "It's understandable, Captain. The awakening is never easy. To have your reality shattered, your beliefs challenged, it's a painful process. But necessary." Zara shook her head, her eyes burning with unshed tears. "Necessary for what? To serve your gods? To be a pawn in your cosmic game?" Zyn sighed, as if dealing with a particularly slow student. "You still don't understand, do you, Captain? This isn't about serving the gods. It's about becoming them." Zara's eyes widened, her breath catching in her throat. "What?" Zyn leaned closer, its voice dropping to a whisper. "The simulation, the universe, it's not just a construct, Captain. It's a crucible, a forge in which the gods themselves are born. And you, with your free will, your ability to shape reality, you have the potential to ascend, to join their ranks." Zara's mind reeled, trying to process the implications. "You're saying I could become a god?" Zyn's smile was almost proud. "You already are, Captain. You just don't know it yet. The test was just the beginning, the first step on a journey that will take you beyond the stars, beyond the very bounds of reality." Zara closed her eyes, her heart pounding in her chest. A part of her, the part that had always yearned for something more, something greater than herself, thrilled at the idea. But another part, the part that had clung to her humanity, to her morality, recoiled in horror. "And what about my crew?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "What about the people I swore to protect?" Zyn's expression hardened, a flicker of impatience crossing its features. "They will serve their purpose, Captain. As will you. The Vin have a plan, a design that spans the eons. Your crew, your ship, they are but pieces on the board, to be moved and sacrificed as necessary." Zara's jaw clenched, a spark of defiance flaring in her chest. "No. I won't let you use them. I won't let you destroy them." Zyn's eyes narrowed, its voice taking on an edge of menace. "You don't have a choice, Captain. You made your decision in the test. You pledged yourself to the Vin, to our cause. There is no turning back now." Zara's mind raced, desperately seeking a way out, a path of escape. But deep down, she knew Zyn was right. She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. "What do you want from me?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Zyn's smile returned, triumphant and predatory. "What we've always wanted, Captain. Your obedience. Your loyalty. Your soul. You will be our instrument, our avatar in the games to come. You will lead your crew, your ship, into the heart of the maelstrom, and you will emerge, reborn, as one of us." Zara felt a chill run down her spine, a sense of inescapable doom settling over her. She looked at Zyn, at the gleaming silver eyes that held her fate, and knew that her life, her very identity, was no longer her own. "I understand," she said, the words tasting like ashes in her mouth. Zyn nodded, satisfaction etched on its alien features. "Good. Then it is time, Captain. Time for you to take your place among the gods. Time for you to embrace your destiny. The cell around her dissolved, the world falling away into an endless, swirling void. Zara felt herself being pulled, drawn into a vortex of light and shadow, her mind and body twisting, changing, becoming something new, something terrifying and magnificent. And as she surrendered to the transformation, as she let go of her last shreds of humanity, she heard Zion's voice echoing in her mind, a final, chilling promise. Welcome to eternity, Captain Rourke. Welcome to godhood. The end.